Welcome, everybody. We are now ready for our county administrator issues and updates. Gary?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Today is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. In the hearing room, we have Chair Smith and Commissioner Shull. Online, we have Commissioners Schrader, Fisher, and Savas. We will start this morning with wildfires update. We have Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management and Incident Commander of the Emergency Operations Center, to present. Please go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So just a little bit of an update on what is going on statewide with our numbers. The total registrations for all of the wildland fires is 25,234. 2,394 of those are Clackamas County registrants. Of those, 24,039 have been valid registrations, and here in Clackamas County, 2,352 of those have been valid. The breakdown is that 6,949 of those statewide are the owners, they own the home. That's 990 here in Clackamas County. 17,066 are renters, and in Clackamas County, that's 1,360. And some that are not specified at this time, the 24 is what we have for statewide, and 2 here in Clackamas County. The maximum for housing assistance, which is $34,500, statewide there's been 519 max grants, and here in Clackamas County there have been 2. And just to remind everyone that these numbers also include the windstorm that we had the weekend before. The average amount of housing assistance that has gone out statewide is just a little over $26 million, which averages out to around $13,000 per person. Here in Clackamas County, we have a total of $406,090 with an average of $4,615. Other needs assistance, which again is things like helping with childcare, or if someone needs help getting to their doctor, funeral services, etc. The average in the state is almost 6.7 million, and with an average amount of 2,637. Here in Clackamas County, the total is 149,550, and the average is 1,226. A couple of other things that we have going on. We have had a lot of questions about the state and how they're doing their contracting, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit more this morning with Commissioner Savas. But we have found out that the contracts that went out for the debris removal has an inclusion in there that is a commitment to hire Oregon firms and for Oregon employees. So that is something I know we've had a lot of questions about, and I wanted to bring that here today. We are also still working on our IGA with ODOT and looking at that and reviewing and making sure we are bringing the best to our county, and we're having everything covered. So we do have Jeff Munns that's working with us in County Council. And then we're also taking a look at that to see if maybe we can split out the public assistance, which includes our tree removal, and PPDR, which is personal property debris removal, because we can get the PPDR, it's pretty well settled, and we can get it moving, and then we can still do some updating maybe around the trees, but we're still exploring that idea. And that is my update.
Any questions from commissioners?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move up an item that's lower on the agenda because it is related to this. It is the draft letter to the Oregon Department of Transportation regarding local contractors for debris cleanup, which Nancy just mentioned. Commissioner Savas asked this be brought to the board last week. The board agreed. There was a draft letter in your packet. If Commissioner Savas, you'd like to tee it up, and the board seeking your approval to send that letter to ODOT.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you to the board and staff for assisting and accommodating the request. The goal here is to ask ODOT to consider Oregon firms, people, employees, industries related to debris removal opportunities or the lumber that comes from that, the work. It just seems that, as a result of the disaster, Oregon has been compromised, disenfranchised to some degree by the fires, a natural event, obviously. But it seems like we ought to do our best to try to get our businesses, our people, our employees, all our industries back up in place. So it would seem that we ought to do our best to follow or try to accommodate local opportunities for training, for business opportunities to be, or for contracting opportunities to be part of this for the sub work ideally. It just fits into what we're all about in Clackamas County, and that's really pulling together to restore our land. So this letter may not do the trick. We hope it will, and I do understand that there are state procurement laws that don't allow us to do or give even the state of Oregon all the flexibility it would like. So recognizing the challenges with procurement laws, I do appreciate the letter, and I would respectfully ask that we approve this and send this on.
Commissioners, are there any comments regarding the letter?
I don't see any hands raised.
I recommend a motion, Chair.
I'll entertain a motion.
Chair Smith.
I move we submit the letter as drafted.
Do I have a second? Online?
Yeah, Commissioner Savas made the motion, Commissioner Fisher made the second.
Thank you. Any further comment regarding this issue?
I don't see any hands raised.
Christine, would you take the poll, please?
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, passes unanimous. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Gary, next item.
Thank you. Next, coronavirus update. We have Nancy Bush again, and joining her is Philip Mason Joyner, Public Health Director and co-incident commander of our Emergency Operations Center. Go ahead, please, Nancy and Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Before I turn it over to Philip to talk about our data for the week, I just wanted to mention that our business and community services are those centers. There's been a lot of questions about keeping those up and running, so we did have a meeting late yesterday to talk about that. And so for the month of January, the EOC and BCS have identified some funding to provide to the BRCs with 50% of their December operating costs. So we want to make sure that those centers keep running because we know that our businesses have been using them, and that it's really important to our community. The funding, if we can fund more later, we will, but at this point, we will keep them going at least 50%. So I just wanted to mention that before I turn it over to Philip.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. And thank you, Christina. So we have a slide like usual to share, a slideshow of our current status of COVID-19 in Clackamas County. So let's dive in. Next slide, please. This slide shows the current cases and deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. Oregon and Clackamas County on the right-hand side here has just over the last week since we met last Tuesday. So you can see in the U.S., the United States, we've had 1.7 million cases, over 22,000 deaths. In Oregon, over 8,000 cases and 109 deaths. And here in Clackamas County, 765 cases in the last week and 6 deaths. Next slide, please. This is our weekly case count, so a little hard to see on the screen perhaps, but this goes back to March of 2020 up until last week. And we were seeing significant surge in cases, have gone down a little bit, but are now starting to see an uptick. We do see a little bit of impacts perhaps from the holiday season that is playing out locally. Next slide, please. Specifically, this pie chart shows you the active outbreaks that are occurring within Clackamas County, which is 2 or more cases that are connected that one another. We can, through our contact tracing efforts, identify potential sources of where an outbreak happened. Half of these outbreaks are in long-term care facilities. So long-term care facilities, that's really the exception to the rule, where if there's any single case within a long-term care facility, it's considered an outbreak. And right now, overall, Clackamas County has 72 outbreaks total in the community. Next slide, please. We shared this last week, hospitalizations in our region. They are continuing over the past couple of weeks and days, trending a little bit downward, which is very, very good to see. We're optimistic about that. And the next slide is bed capacity. Bed capacity in the region is also each day pretty much staying steady, a little bit of improvement. This changes on an ongoing basis, but it's pulled every single day, and we receive that data and look at it. We're continuing to meet with hospital partners, with first responders, and making sure that we have good capacity for if folks become severely ill, that they have access to a hospital bed. So far, I'm feeling like we're in good shape on that front at the moment. Next slide, please. And then vaccine distribution is certainly all hands on deck right now, a lot of attention and focus on the efforts. We have over 9,000 of our Clackamas County residents that have received the vaccine. And these current vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine, are 2 doses. So you can see 522 folks are fully vaccinated in Clackamas County. We're working a lot with first responders, with our frontline healthcare workers to get them access to the vaccine. And we have a team in place here at Clackamas County Public Health that is working through all of that. Next slide, please. So a significant change in the last week is that the state initially expected counties to go in order of these groups, these 4 groups within the phase 1 prioritization. And now that has been opened up, where now we're able to vaccinate all 4 groups. So we've received a whole lot of inquiries, questions about how to get folks access to the vaccine. And at the county level, our clinics, public health, and health centers, we have been receiving a shipment of 1,000 doses every week. However, we have over a dozen vaccine enrolled providers out in the community that also are receiving allocations of the vaccine and vaccinating our residents, along with at the local hospitals. And then the next slide is really important for the community to know that we now have a web-based form that anyone who believes that they are eligible within that phase 1 grouping as being a frontline healthcare worker, or if they're associated with an organization that is phase 1A eligible within those 4 groups, they need to go onto our website, clackamas.us/coronavirus/vaccine. There's a new form that will allow all this information to be centralized. You fill out that form, we'll be looking at that every day, and we'll be getting folks scheduled either at a local hospital or at one of the other locations around the county to get access to the vaccine. There is a lot more demand for the vaccine than there is the availability of it, so we ask for patience. We will get you scheduled. It might take a little bit of time. It likely won't be immediate, but we're doing the best we can to meet your needs and get folks access as quickly as we can. And then we have a new email address at the county. So if anyone has any general questions about the COVID vaccine, we ask that you please go to covidvaccine@clackamas.us. There will be a Tri-County press conference that the health officers, Dr. Present, and others, along with our county communication staff, at 11 o'clock today, where they will be announcing this form, the process, answering questions, and a press release will also be going out with that. Next slide, please, Christina. And so we are very busy working on phase 1A. You saw that list there. There's a lot of folks that within our county, such a large county, that qualify for 1A. Dental offices, clinics, chiropractors, home health care agencies, adult foster homes, you name it. So there's a lot of folks that we're going to be reaching. And then we're already working on phase 1B, which is the governor did announce a change that she's prioritized educators being the first in phase 1B. Then the next steps of the process, the Oregon's new vaccine advisory committee, they will be responsible for determining the next priority groups. And they had their first meeting last Thursday. They're meeting weekly to do that work. Okay, so that's vaccine. I do want to share that the state has released the new risk levels metrics for, these are advisory for our schools now around providing in-person instruction, and they're required for businesses. So we, as the weekly case trends show, we are still in the extreme risk category. So 348.6 is our case rate over the last 2 weeks per 100,000, and our test positivity is 7.4. We want, as a county, our case rate per 100,000 to be 200 or less in order to get out of the extreme risk and test positivity under 5. So that's what our goal is. This is really a call to action. We need the community's help to follow the public health precautions, to limit their interactions, and do what they can to prevent spread in the community from COVID-19 so we can move forward as a community. And next slide, please. So there was a specific request, I know, from County Administrator Schmidt and from some commissioners wanting some public health guidance and if more information and perhaps discussion about guidelines for offices and meetings. You know, my role as the public health director is really focused on reducing morbidity and mortality from this virus. We're in extreme risk, and as I said, extreme risk is a call to action. We are telling all employers across the community to be remote as much as possible. That if you can't be remote, it's really focus in on what are those, what's the minimum necessary in-person services and staffing that you need to have in place in order to provide services to the community or keep your operations running. In general, for offices across the community, we're recommending that they be closed to the public. We understand that local municipalities are exempt from that. However, in general, the public health recommendations are that you follow this. Extreme risk is that call to action. We do want folks to use every tool in the toolbox available to help make sure that services are being provided, but also we're doing what we can to reduce risk.
Philip,
And
can I ask a question? I'm going to
Sure, please
interrupt
do.
you. I'm looking at this graph. It says green, yellow, yellow, red. The moderate risk and high risk categories, the recommendations are exactly the same on my chart. Is that correct?
They're,
Recommend remote work if able. Recommend
extreme
remote
risk
work
is-
if able.
yes, extreme risk is to require remote work.
No,
Moderate and high is to recommend, and lower risk is limited office.
no, you understand the moderate risk category and the high risk category, the recommendations are exactly the same. So what's the difference between the two?
The recommendations, regardless of where the case counts are for those different levels, moderate and high, they're still the same recommendations. Off the top of my head, I know that high risk is 200 or less. I think 100 to 200, I can get you the exact number, and then moderate, something like 50 to 100. Lower risk is under 50. So that's
Okay,
that
I would
case
like
rate
for the public as well, because this is why the public gets confused. Because you put out these recommendations, and I'm reading it, well, what the heck's the difference? And I think in our attempt to overanalyze data and overanalyze recommendations, we sometimes don't see the forest through the trees, if you understand what I'm saying. Because it's a slideshow presentation, most people are going to say, well, moderate risk, okay, recommend for work, no big deal. High risk, same thing. And so it tends to have some people not take the recommendations seriously if there's no differentiation between a moderate risk or a high risk. Can you come back or just give to the board a point of clarification on this? And then maybe the
Absolutely.
next time that you're able to come before the board, let's see, this is Clackamas County slide, okay. The next time if you could make a differentiation between the moderate risk and the high risk, more so on this particular visual.
Will do.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
All right, and I think that actually is my, I would say these are the recommendations from public health. I think that they're really appropriate, and they're recommendations. You as the board, in terms of your meetings, you make that decision. These are my recommendations as your public health director. And there was also questions about kind of our county operations, and I'm going to have Nancy share that information for the board.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Philip. I appreciate all the work you have done and that you're about to do on this topic. I know you're a very busy person.
And I know Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, and thank you, Philip. It's nice to see you. Couple things. I just want to reiterate that we are in extreme risk. I'm really disappointed that our numbers have actually gone up. I was hoping, or I had expected that our numbers might be coming down a bit for these couple weeks because of the freeze that was put into place in November, but looks like the numbers are continuing to go up. And I'm just reiterating that it's your advice, and I had talked to Dr. Present last week, and she said basically the same thing, that it's your recommendation that to work remotely if able, and not to, and to limit activity. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay, well, that helps me in informing my my decisions on how to proceed. My next question, now this is kind of a doozy. I just got off the phone with a school board member in Westland, Wilsonville, and we all know that getting our children back in school is a top priority for our community. One suggestion that she had mentioned is distribution of the vaccine through the health nurses to staff. I am interested in knowing if that might be possible and if that's something that we could look into at the local level.
So vaccinations for school nurses, right now, we're working with our local schools to get them access to the vaccine and getting them scheduled in the clinics to get the vaccine. So school nurses qualify for 1A. Now, in terms of the work to get all of our educators across Clackamas County, that's being worked on right now. Some of the school districts have health insurance through Kaiser and Providence. They're going to be able to access that vaccine directly. Some of the private schools and other schools, we're looking at our own health centers, some of the school-based health clinics around the county. Some of the other providers we will be able to prioritize getting them access to the vaccine. Because yes, getting our kids back in school is certainly a priority for the county, along with the state of Oregon.
I have a comment.
But
Oh, I'm sorry, go
just
ahead.
have a follow-up real quick. But can we at the local level distribute the vaccine to school health nurses so that they can vaccinate staff, teachers?
Yeah, that definitely is a possibility. There is some infrastructure to set up, standing orders. They all have to be trained on administering this vaccine. It's definitely a possibility. It might be faster to use the existing resources we already have. So that's issues that our team is actively working on with our school partners right now.
Okay, so if a school board member, and we're hearing from teachers, we're hearing from school board members, we're hearing from parents, if they have questions about how to distribute the vaccine at the local level, where should we send them? Should we just go through our policy advisors to help coordinate through EOC, or what is our protocol?
Yeah, we have a staff member that's dedicated to liaisoning with the schools. And we do have a new email. We can send that to all your policy advisors, so the whole board has that email as well. but it's COVID School Liaison at clackamas.us. And that's going to be the primary mechanism for all of our schools to contact us around vaccine and school reopening for in-person instruction.
Philip, can you repeat that email louder, and can anybody get on that email?
Anyone can email us, certainly.
Okay. Could you state that louder again, please?
The email is COVID, COVID, school liaison at clackamas.us.
Thank you.
And that information should be on our website. If not, it will be on the website soon.
I would like to make mention for the board and anybody listening. According to Governor Brown's own executive orders, government agencies are exempt from closure in extreme risk categories. Correct, Philip?
I might want to step in here because we actually do have our county council with us today because we have been working with Andrew on that very question. So Andrew, I don't know if you want to step up and help us out with that one. From what we're finding, it is confusing. But I think when we read 2066, which is still in place, it does appear that that's true, but I think we're doing some confirmation. So Andrew?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Naylor, County Council. For the most part, yes, that's true. The governor's executive order exempts local government from paragraph 6 of the rest of the order. Paragraph 6 is the part that says if you're in extreme risk, you should telecommute. So we are exempted from that requirement. We are subject to the other requirements, which is what additional research Nancy mentioned. We're going to try to track down what exactly that means because it's not clear what else is there. There's the OSHA requirements, there's likely the maximum occupancy requirements, and the face mask requirements, but we're just confirming that's it. So we are reaching out to our counterparts at the state. But to your direct question, yes, we are exempt from that requirement.
Thank you, Andrew Naylor, County Council. And looking across this room, we do have people in here. Everybody is wearing a mask. Everybody is social distancing. And that doesn't mean that we might not develop a hybrid of this model later as things change. And just know I'm flexible. And as situations come our way, I think that this government can be nimble enough to adapt and move forward and continue to do the citizens' business. But for now, for today, we're enjoying each other's company in a healthy, prescribed manner. Nancy, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Nancy. Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I checked in with Leah Horner regarding general workplaces and that very question of public entities being exempt. And her email, which I had shared with Gary Schmidt, our county administrator, says that we do have to comply with general workplace safety. And one of those requirements, according to my email from Leah Horner, is to comply with remote work requirements, recommendations, and closures for offices based on the designated risk level for the county in which the employer or organization is located. So I'm happy, Andrew, to forward this email that I received from Leah Horner, which sort of outlines where we as public entities interface with the risk levels and what our requirements are, if that would be helpful.
Should have stayed seated. Yes, Commissioner, that would be helpful, and I think you're identifying why this gets confusing, because you have the governor's order, which expressly says you're exempt as to one thing, but follow what OHA recommends elsewhere, so you have the potential conflict between the two bodies' rules that are coming out. So if you could forward that email, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good.
Is she done? Are you done, Commissioner Fisher?
Yes, I'm trying to email you, Andrew, and you're not popping up in my contacts. So it's Naylor, Andrew, but I'm going to forward it to Kimberly, and she can find anyone in the county. So it is on its way to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, Nancy, why don't you go ahead then, please?
Okay, thank you. All right, so some of the questions too that came from the board were about OSHA, some of the things that we have done, how we've opened up the buildings, brought people back in. So if I can have the first slide up for, I think it's slide 13, Christina. So we do have a timeline here when Christina gets that up. Our first case was 2/28, and Philip called me around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and we opened the EOC by 4:30. And it was a very late night that night. But that was our first case, which of course was a Washington County case, but they worked here in Clackamas County. On 3/23, the stay home, save life orders came from the governor, and we did here at Clackamas County do mostly remote, except for those, of course, that were in critical. The EOC was open and those types of things. One of the reasons, or the main reason we actually did have everyone go home is because we needed to assess our buildings and make sure that when we have people here in the buildings and have staff coming back, that it's done safely. We had things in place in order to make sure that happened. And we did everything from we put markings on the floors that you see in all of our buildings, stay 6 feet apart. We put signs up that there's only 2 people in the elevators, for example. We had a lot of sneeze guards that were put into place, especially for our counters that are public counters. So there's a whole host of things that we did at that time to say, okay, we're ready now to bring some staff back in order to make sure that we have our county business and we are serving our residents. So at that time, at the Emergency Operations Center, we actually had Dan Johnson, who's in the room with us today too, who was a big part of this. We pulled together, we called it Phase 1, and we have a lengthy document that says, okay, how are you going to bring staff in? Who are you bringing back in, and how are you doing it safely? And as a part of that, we also had what we called, monitors for making sure that they walk around a couple times a day at least and say, is everyone are they social distancing? Are they wearing their mask? Those types of things. So all of those things had to be in place. That process actually went through, so risk management signed off on it first, facilities management signed off on it, and then I and the EOC signed off on it as well, and public health also took a look at those. So that is how we brought people back into the buildings very, very deliberately. And then here on I should put my glasses on, sorry. 5/23 is when we did that, and that was our first phase opening. So next slide, please, Christina. So I just kind of covered all of this, but just to reiterate, we also did some things too where we made sure that all of the signs and symptoms were up in the building. So anyone entering the building that was public, it's like, if you have these signs or symptoms, please do not enter. And we do have that in other languages as well, where they can pick that up at the front counter. We do have it bigger in English and in Spanish, and the other languages is actually on a flyer. So if someone comes in, our front staff, office staff could give them that flyer.
And so Nancy, these guidelines that are set up all over the county, it's OSHA guidelines, and it's people's choice for the most part, if they want to, as far as the public is concerned, it's.
So if you are entering the building, you are required to have a face covering?
No, yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's people's choice whether they can come into the building. They can certainly access the services remotely or on the telephone.
Yes. I think if I'm understanding your question, yes. We have people answering phones and serving the public in that way. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. We also had traffic arrows that were put down as possible too. So if we could make traffic one way. So could I have the next slide, please? So we are following all guidance for Oregon OSHA, OHA, and Governor Brown, as well as the CDC. And some of those things, of course, have changed as we've moved forward. But we actually put some things in place at the county that were not required by OSHA at that time that are required now. So we had a lot of things and a lot of work that didn't have to be done on the back end. And then we also put into place temporary teleworking, and we have a policy for that, which, of course, Mr. Schmidt signed. Mr. Schmidt also did out-of-state travel restrictions, and also we had guidelines around sanitation and what we need to do if there is an employee that does test positive for COVID, and how do we do that cleaning, which has changed over time the more we learn about the disease and the touch points and what we need to do there. We also have, as part of the new OSHA updates, workplace case reporting plans, and we do some employee training as well around that. And we have the OSHA training, which is required and has been sent out to all of our staff. Next slide, please. So part of the new OSHA guidelines, of course, we have to have our face coverings on at all time, which Chair Smith mentioned. All of us in this room have our face mask on. The only time you can take your face mask off when you're in the office setting is if you have an office with a door and you have the door closed. Any other time, when you're walking to the hall, when you're going to the restroom, if I have someone come into my office, we both have to put our face mask on. There are HVAC system requirements that were part of the new OSHA guidelines as well. And I believe we had until January 4th to check those out. That has been done completely. And again, a lot of that was done even before that became an OSHA regulation. We were very proactive in that. It was just very difficult, about fresh air and what was coming in during our fires. And so there was a delicate balance at that time. Because if you opened up too much fresh air, of course, we had the worst air quality in the world. So, but after that happened, they went through, checked all the filters again, which of course were quite dirty, and we are complying with that as well. We also have COVID employee positive procedures and for employee notification. The governor's office and OHA, whenever we had so many cases, we could not keep up with all of them, so it was put on the workplace to do notification, and we were required through OSHA to have that process in place, which we do have. And we work very diligently to make sure that people are safe during, if we have any kind of exposure, we know that we find someone that has a positive. So we do have some really good protocols in place for that as well, which risk management is also a part of. And that is all I have for the OSHA guidelines and what we have done and the kind of the history of bringing people back into the building.
I have a question, Nancy.
Sure.
Back on the second to the last slide, there was a mention of HVAC requirements.
Yes.
Yeah, did you, what's being done at the county level with that?
So those requirements, facilities management has went through every building and every HVAC system to make sure it is complying. If for some reason it doesn't, because some of our HVAC systems are very old, we have put some purifiers in different buildings to make sure that the air quality is where it should be.
Are they HEPA filters?
Yes.
Has there
I know
been-
that, I can't speak for every building, and I can't report, I don't have the report. I think we can share that. I know Mr. Schmidt has that as well,
Has
but
there been any discussion of UV lighting in HVAC systems?
I'm sorry.
UV lighting in HVAC systems?
We have not had that discussion with facilities management here at the county at this point.
Maybe that's something that you, me, or the board, I would like to have at least an internal, just a briefing on that with facilities and you and me about the technology. There's a lot of technologies coming out that are quite effective, and maybe we can pursue that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. All right. And then, yeah, that's it, if there's other questions.
Chair Smith, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The teachers' unions are concerned about the vaccination of teachers before school starts. You mentioned teachers are in Phase 1B for vaccinations. Do you have a guesstimate on what day that's going to be? I ask that question because I get questions from moms and dads out there all over the county asking, when will schools be able to open?
Yeah, I'm getting that same question frequently. I wish I had the crystal ball to give you an exact date. I don't. It's still going to be a few weeks, several weeks before the larger counties with higher population will be done with Phase 1A, and then teachers are next. So it could be a few weeks, it could be a couple months. It could still be a little while before we're able to fully vaccinate and have all of the educators done with both of their shots.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
And Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. So Nancy, I really appreciate the all of the hard work and diligence to safety at the county offices. It's so evident when you go enter our offices and you see all the signs. You have the stickers on the floor when going into the elevators. There's hand sanitizer everywhere. There is, I mean, the work has just been absolutely phenomenal. So I really want to thank you for that. My concern, and it might be because I'm taking this a little bit personally, I will confess, I have currently 3 family members, 2 who are elderly, living on their own here in Oregon that are struggling with COVID. No idea where they got it. And so my question, I don't know if this is a Philip question. It's probably a Dr. Present question. So Philip, if you can't answer it, it's okay. I know she advises you on your opinions. But in the extreme risk category, I'm understanding that this virus is just spreading right now, and we cannot necessarily identify where it's coming from. So my concern is that all of these safety precautions don't really keep us safe completely. I mean, we can't just wear masks and stay 6 feet apart indoors and consider ourselves safe. Could you just comment on that in light of everything that we've done? Does that make sure that we are protecting our workforce and the public?
Well, the tools that we put in place, I think Clackamas County has done an exceptional job of putting those precautions in place that you described, Commissioner. You're right. Community spread, where it's occurring all over the community, and that's where it really drives it is those face-to-face interactions. So we can clean, but really it's those exposures. So when I think about workplaces, it's about those staggered shifts. It's about making sure you don't have the whole office there at any time, because you want to make sure that your operations can continue. You want to make sure that you as a board, that we don't have a situation where someone, this virus is difficult. You're contagious before you have symptoms. And so we wouldn't want to be put in a situation where there's been an exposure, folks get sick, you have to quarantine, you have to isolate. It hinders our ability to do our essential work. And that's, from my role, that's what I focus in on, making sure that we can continue to move forward as with the precautions and with all the tools we can. So it's the face coverings, it's the sanitation, it's the physical distancing, but it's also limiting our interactions, our physical interactions with others as much as possible. Because those face-to-face interactions, those gatherings of people, that's what drives spread. That's what the virus likes.
I think Commissioner Fisher is done.
What?
I think Commissioner Fisher is done. I don't see her.
Any other comments for Nancy?
Yeah, thank you, Christina.
Gary?
Ready to move on then? So commissioners, with Chair Smith's approval, we're going to move these updates to Thursdays instead of today, Tuesdays, on the wildfire and coronavirus updates, mainly because there are data that comes in after this meeting, and therefore we're always a week behind. So starting next week, we'll do these on Thursdays instead of Tuesdays. So just FYI, starting next week. Next, we have a COVID contract approval for CARES funding for housing work. This was added to the agenda yesterday. I sent it to you. Nancy, could you please quickly describe the contract, please?
Yes, thank you very much. So we have a lot coming in very quickly about extending our CARES dollars. This is one of those things, and it actually, we have to have an answer back to them tomorrow, which is Wednesday, which is why we're here in front of the board today. So this is a no additional or no cost extension to the CARES Act funding, which is issued through the U.S. Department of Treasury to our Social Services Division, and it is primarily for rental assistance. So we're asking you today to give staff permission to respond that, yes, we do want these CARES dollars extended into, I think it's June, the end of June of '21. And that is our basic ask.
To June of 2021, you said, Nancy?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, June 30, 2021.
Commissioners, is there any discussion on this?
Don't have any hands raised.
So seeking a motion, please, to approve.
I would like a motion to approve.
Chair Smith, I move that we approve this motion to extend the housing CARES funding.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Commissioner Schrader.
Commissioner Scholl has moved the motion, and Commissioner Schrader has second. Any other comments? Christine, would you call the poll, please?
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, the motion passes. Gary, up next.
Thank you. Next, also related to COVID, per the county's emergency declaration, a temporary waiver request from provisions of zoning and development ordinance. We have Dan Johnson, and is Jennifer Hughes, no, just Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. The application was in your packet. Could you quickly explain what the emergency declaration allows, and then the request, please?
Perfect.
Dan.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commission. My name is Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. That was the introduction I was going to give you. Essentially, this allows us to support businesses during this trying time of the pandemic, allows some flux in some of our zoning requirements. I will let you know this request has been reviewed by our building department, our planning department, and our public health partners, and they all approved the request as proposed, which is essentially to facilitate some outdoor seating to assist with the Margarita Factory restaurant.
Commissioners, any comments about this memorandum?
I don't have any hands raised.
Gary, since this is a memorandum form, does this require a vote?
It needs a motion and a vote, please.
I
Yes.
will entertain a motion to pass this memorandum dated January 6th for the waiver of zoning and development ordinance standards for temporary use.
So moved.
Paul?
Savas.
Seconded.
Paul Savas has made a motion, and Mark Scholl has seconded that motion. Is there any other discussion? Christine, would you take the poll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, the motion passes. Gary, up next.
Next, advisory boards and commission appointments. Christina, could you please present?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my packet real quick. Okay, so the Clackamas County Extension and 4-H Service District, staffed by the OSU Extension, currently has 3 openings to their commission due to term expirations. Recruitment opened 2 times to the public. There were 3 applications, and 3 were recommended to be appointment. Their names are Edward Winkler, first term, Don Wiley, first term, and Cheryl Keithan, first term.
Wonderful. I'm really glad that we have volunteers stepping up the plate to serve something as so wonderful as the 4-H. Commissioners, do we have any comments on this?
Chair, I move for approval.
Paul moves for
I'll
approval.
second.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas has moved for approval on the adoption of 3 members for the County Extension and 4-H Service. Martha Schrader has seconded that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, Christine, would you call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes. Up next, Gary.
Next is review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, January 14th, 2021. You have one public hearing, which is dissolution of the Shady Dell Water Control District. County Counsel Jeff Munns is going to give you an update on that in just one moment. Then you have four board discussion items. This morning, you agreed to add to the consent agenda the Concord Library Task Force, which we will add. But that is your business meeting for this Thursday. In the interim here, as you know, we are having staff bring consent agenda items to you first on Tuesdays, which we will do that later this morning. And then once that is the approval, we'll then go on future business meetings. So that's why you have a short agenda for this Thursday for now. If I may ask Jeff Munns to please come forward, could you briefly brief the board on this public hearing for this Thursday, which is the dissolution of the Shady Dell Water Control District?
Yes, thank you. This matter came to the county in September of last year when the Secretary of State's office informed our county treasurer that the Shady Dell Water Control District had not filed the required reports, basically their budget reports with the state for the past 3 years. And under the statute, in that situation, then we are to look into whether or not this water control district rather, should be dissolved or continued or annexed into one of our county service districts if possible. So I was able to make contact with the attorney for the water control district. They have not had not been operating, it looks like, since sometime in 2016 or 17. Did talk to the former treasurer, or I guess emails with her through her attorney regarding the status of this water control district. They're not operating. They don't see a need, it sounds like, at this time. So reviewed their documents, completed the financial report as required by statute. And that was reviewed, and a board order was signed in December of last year, establishing this public hearing, which is the final step in this process. The public hearing, the decision for the board is going to be, is the district still operating? There may be public comment on this. I don't know. All that I can tell is that it's not operating. And the other option would be, is it possible for a county service district to take over these operations? I spoke with Deputy Director of WES, as well as reviewed this matter with the county counsel in our office who handles those matters, and they reviewed this. And it's not something geographically located next to West where they could easily annex it or even operate it, because they don't currently do this type of flood control, water control. This service is not something that West is doing at this time. The county in the later date, or some later date, adopted or enacted a service water control district. It may be something that would be possible, but at this time, it's not something that a county service district would be able to do. So we're not aware of any evidence that would show that this water control district should continue, but the purpose of the public hearing is to hear if there is any other evidence for the board's consideration. And if there is not any other evidence, then have a draft board order included with the staff report for your consideration on Thursday to dissolve the water control district. The only assets we're aware of for this Shady Dell Water Control District is just over $500 in an account. Under the statute, if this were to be dissolved, that money would be turned over to the county. I'm also not aware of any debts at this time, but our job would be to inquire as to what that is. And to do so, the statute requires that a board of trustees be established. There's no further discussion in the statutes about what that is. It's just that it's, instead of a trustee, it is plural. So what we've recommended is that you establish a board of trustees that includes a member of county counsel's office, member of the finance department, and a member of the county treasurer's office. And I've contacted Brian Nava, as well as our financial director and our finance department director, and they've all agreed that they would be people for me to contact and for us to work together to dissolve this water control district. And what that would mean is the money would go into the county's general account, and if we do find any debts, we would pay those. We do have authority under the statute, if we find additional debts, to actually assess the members of that water control district to raise just the necessary funds to pay off the debts of the district. So that's the basic process. We haven't found any other additional evidence to make any other recommendations other than dissolution at this time, but happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a couple questions, Jeffrey.
Yes.
The Shadydale Water Control District is near Molalla,
Correct.
and the city of Molalla certainly has its own water district. How are these people in this area being served?
Well, it's a revetment that they maintain.
It's a what?
It's a revetment, like a levee, essentially. And in discussions, I also talked to the Molalla River Company, which is a nonprofit organization that's directly adjacent to the Shadydale Water Control District. And they are also, from my discussions with them, apparently in kind of a state of inaction at this time and not having a lot of meetings, and they were not interested in taking over this responsibility either. So I did look into that possibility. There may be some local organization that could do the same role. And from what I'm hearing from the attorney and the former treasurer for the Water Control District that we're discussing, they don't feel that there's a need at this time for them to continue.
So during the interim time, how are these people are still being served? Obviously, they still have water.
Well, it's more of a flood control matter. And so the levees or their revetments are in good condition apparently, and there is no need to assess the group to make repairs or upgrades at this time, is my understanding. So
And does this have anything to do with the, is there sewer or septic tanks in this area?
I do not know if there are septic tanks in this area. I know
I
that
should
this,
know this, but I've forgotten. I have friends that live in this area.
but that would not be a service that's covered by this water control district either,
Okay.
obviously. This
Well, that's
is just the
good to know.
flooding.
That's
But
good
I
to
understand
know.
the cause and effect of that, of course.
Okay.
But as far as I can understand from the information available, the district does not feel it's necessary to, or those representatives
It
rather.
sounds like to me, since this district is fairly inoperable, that the citizens are taking care of their own flood abatement when and if it should happen.
That may be the case. It's hard to say what individual property owners are doing, but apparently those property owners that are part of this organization don't feel it necessary to continue this water control district to meet their needs to update maintain the revetment rather.
Are there any other comments from commissioners?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Gary, this is a staff report. It's going to go on to the business meeting.
Yes, it's already on the agenda for now. This was just to brief you all in preparation of the public hearing this Thursday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Jeffrey Munns.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, Chair Smith, you had asked to discuss a potential recognition for Sheriff Craig Roberts.
Yes. Well, no surprise to anybody, Craig Roberts did not seek re-election. He has served wonderfully as our county sheriff for 15 years. I would like to have a recognition from him at a possible business meeting, and appreciating him and saluting him for his many years of service. And being a sheriff of a county the size of Clackamas is no easy task. And I think he has handled it well, and I think he has served our citizens well, and I would like to honor him. Do we have any comments from commissioners on that?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea. I think I can probably speak for all of us when I say that COVID really put a damper on honoring our elected leaders who've retired. I would have much preferred having a celebration and an acknowledgement. Sheriff Roberts has been amazing on so many important issues, especially when it comes to child abuse, and the summit that he facilitated and all his work with our schools and just the heart for children and prevention. And I could go on and on. So I am fully in support of that. I'm also recognizing that we had District Attorney John Foote retire at the same time. So I think we should also honor John Foote. I had the honor and privilege early in my career of being a special prosecutor with the District Attorney's Office. And I can say from personal experience, he runs a tight ship. He ran that at the District Attorney's Office, and it was really an honor to work for him during that time. So that would also be my request, that we honor both of our elected leaders that retired last year.
Any other commissioner comments? I think we would like, we'll have staff, Gary, get together and figure out what's going to work on this type of honor for for Sheriff Roberts and District Attorney Foote, both of them. And then when we come up with a plan, we will certainly extend an invitation to them and ask them, number one, if they would like to receive an appreciation award, and then how they would like to have it given to them.
Yes, we will prepare that and bring it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Next up,
All right, the final item for the regular part of issues is Commissioner Communications, but I asked Chair if you would allow us to postpone that so we could get to our consent agenda request list, which is quite lengthy.
yes, I would recommend you do that, Gary.
Thank you. So we'll come back to Commissioner Communications later today. Next is requests from staff to put items on the board business meeting consent agenda. This is a new process that we're trying out for the first time here. So we have 17 requests. So staff, they're in the room or online. I'm going to ask you, we'll do it in the order that it's on the list. Please come forward. And the commissioners have read your staff reports. So you have 2 minutes. 2 minutes to give your verbal update and then answer any questions from the board. This should go very quickly. However, we'll take the time we need for the board to ask their questions. Are you ready? We'll start with Business and Community Services, extension of Wood Innovations Grant. Sarah Ekman is presenting. And she's right there. Please come forward, Sarah, to any of these tables you desire.
Good morning. My name's Sarah Ekman. I'm with Clackamas County Business and Community Services. I'm here today to ask for your review and approval to extend a Wood Innovations grant that we have with the USDA, United States Forest Service. Originally, the grant is intended to run through February 1st of 2021, and we're asking to extend this through December 31st, 2021, to allow for work to take place that has been delayed due to COVID. This grant is intended to fund a fall design studio with the University of Oregon. This has taken place, and there's additional work, such as a life cycle analysis, a communications plan, and sharing the outcomes of the project at future conferences. The life cycle analysis and the communications plan are near finalized. However, the work being shared at conferences was delayed due to COVID. That is why we're asking for the extension. So please share with me any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Commissioners, do you have any questions based on this proposal?
I don't see any hands raised.
And Gary, on this, remind me of what our procedure is on all these items.
Yes, so if you are comfortable, then we'll put this on a consent agenda for you to approve at a business meeting, so there would not be discussion at the business meeting. You would just approve it on the consent. This
Is
your
there a
chance.
need to vote on every single one of these?
No, so today I'm not asking for a vote, just
All
to
right.
say, put it on the agenda, yes or no.
Okay, I think, since I don't hear any objections from any of the commissioners, I believe this one's good to go.
Goes to the agenda. And one
Thank
quick
you.
caveat, so these will all be on next Thursday's business meeting agenda. Unless you feel it's urgent, then you need to tell us today. So is this urgent for this week, or can it wait until next Thursday?
Next Thursday is fine.
Very good, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, very good, Sarah. You set the tone for today. Let's move on. Next, authorization to purchase Dodge vehicles for the Sheriff's Office. We have staff from both the Sheriff's Office, Jenna Morrison, and from Transportation and Development, Dan Johnson, Mike Palmer. This was already on the agenda, and Commissioner Savas asked that it be pulled. Unfortunately, he stepped away from the meeting right now. So I don't know, Chair, if you'd like to, I'm sorry, staff, you've been waiting, if you want to wait for Commissioner Savas to return or to move forward.
It's a sticky wicket. Let's go ahead and staff make their presentation. And maybe another commissioner can remember what Commissioner Savas's objections were. And if there are objections, you can go ahead and address it right now. I'm hesitant to have you come back because I know you're very busy people. So would you like to go ahead?
So my name is Jenna Morrison. I'm the Chief Deputy with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. And I didn't prepare a presentation. I believe Dan can do the presentation if that's necessary. We were asked to be here to answer questions.
He's right behind you.
All right.
So I'll have him come up, set to the side table. Jennifer, you can stay where you're at. Thank you very much. Dan, would you like to go ahead?
I would love to go ahead. So this was a topic that was on consent. It's an acquisition of Dodge Chargers. We have fleet within our portion of our organization. We partner closely with CCSO on these acquisitions. There were some concerns raised. I believe it was by Commissioner Savas and Chair Bernard about the acquisition of these various vehicles. I'm not sure what the specific concern was, but I can tell you that I have followed up with our head of fleet. They have all the confidence in the world in these vehicles. They have the materials and the ability to want to service them. They have the expertise and the skills to service them, and there were no significant concerns raised from Warren Gadbury, the head of our fleet operations. So with that, that's about all I've got.
I see a cost of $341,305.81.
And that has been budgeted.
Yep.
It's in the current budget.
That was part of our approved budget that went through in May, yes.
So this has already been approved by commission, but you're just asking, this is the normal part of the procurement process?
That's correct.
Commissioners, do you have any comments?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, I think you're good to go.
Thank you.
And this wait till January 21st, business meeting.
So I if that is what you wish to do.
You need to have it come forth further.
We would like it to, we've already been delayed on this. We are waiting for these vehicles, and so we would like it to be, if it could happen on Thursday, that would be fantastic. If that's not possible, the 21st we'll have to do.
Gary, can we make that happen this
Your
Thursday?
decision, Chair. If you'd like it, we'll make it so.
Let's do it.
Okay, it'll be this Thursday's business meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Health, Housing, and Human Services has several. Rich Swift, please come forward. We'll start with the point-in-time count. Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commission. So every 2 years, as required by Housing and Urban Development, we conduct what is called point-in-time count. And on a single night in January, we go out and count all those individuals in the county who are unsheltered. This count is important for us related to funding. The last time we did our count, through HUD, we received $2.7 million in funding from HUD for houseless and housing services, and also for housing. So this year, with COVID-19, we working with HUD, they have given us permission to, an exception to not do the physical point-in-time count. We are very reliant on volunteers to do this count. And so because of COVID-19 and the risks related to infection, they have allowed us to do a database count because, as HUD said, and I will read the quote to you, your HMIS analysis shows strong correlation between the data in your system and those identified as unsheltered in 2019. HMIS system is actually the homeless management information system that we use to track all those individuals in the county who are coming to us for housing assistance because they are unsheltered. This is I think a larger topic for the board. Not going to be able to do this in 2 minutes, but in terms of the COC and all of the pieces that make this up. But I did want to bring to your attention that we have received this exception from HUD, probably one of the few organizations in the state that's actually received this related to the robustness of our data. So this is actually not seeking your approval. I don't believe it really is just information for the board that we will not be doing our usual physical point-in-time count.
Okay.
I apologize, Rich. I thought this was a consent agenda. It clearly is not. This was a general update to the board. I'm sorry to you. I'm sorry, Chair. I put it in the wrong place. That was my fault.
Oh, that's okay.
It's important, for the board to know about this.
I think it is very important because we've been doing this for a very long time. Commissioners, does anybody have a comment about that?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand up.
Commissioner Fisher.
Hey, thank you, and thank you, Rich. I've been thought about this. I've participated in these homeless counts in the past. I know Commissioner Savas and others have as well. It is a very much all very talk to people directly kind of process. I'm just curious, has there been any talk about just delaying the homeless count? Because we're so close to this virus being under control with the vaccine distribution. Is that at all a possibility, just to delay for a few months?
Well, I know that Multnomah County has requested a delay. I believe Washington County has also requested a delay. Because there was such high correlation in our data in the HMIS system, Commissioner Fisher, I'm looking up at the TV now, that we, HUD did not believe we needed to actually delay our count. So we can go forward with our work related to this. At some point, we could actually engage in account two, I think. I know there's nothing that stops us if, we get to a point, at some point in the future that we're able to and feel confident that we're able to have no risk for infection for those involved in the account process. But right now, that's hard for me to answer.
So I'm just really confused as to how we will successfully count people if we don't go out and actually go to where they are and count them. I mean, this isn't like the census where people can go online and fill out their information.
That is correct. And so we're just going to be reliant on our data tracking system to the child to do this count. And we do have the exception from HUD. If we choose to delay, I will have to actually go back to staff and check with HUD in terms of what that would mean for us.
So in other words, we will only be counting those that have sought services with Clackamas County.
That's correct.
Okay, well, we know that's, a lot of people don't seek services. If you just go and talk to people, then we know that will give us an accurate number. I really rely on your expertise. I'm concerned about this. I would like us, we're building, I don't have to tell you, Rich, that our homeless services measure, it'll be important to have accurate data.
Yes.
For that. So that's my input. You guys run the show. I set policy along with my fellow board, but those are my concerns.
All right, thank you.
Gary?
So board, we're going to go ahead with what Rich is recommending then on the waiver, right? No
Yeah,
concerns?
any other objections from commissioners about this?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, no hands raised. Well, we will accept Rich Swift's recommendation.
Thank you. Next, a rental assistance program grant. Go ahead, Rich.
All right, thank you. So this is actually an item that we do need approval for, and time is of the essence on this because U.S. Treasury Department has released an announcement that released this last Wednesday for an opportunity across the country. $25 billion will be distributed. And so we will actually have to go into the system by 9 o'clock tonight to make our request for our capacity to participate in this funding opportunity through U.S. Treasury. The award requires, and I'll read this here, 90% of awarded funds must be used for direct financial assistance, including rent, rental arrears, utilities and home energy costs, utilities and home energy cost arrears, and other expenses related to housing. Remaining funds are available for housing stability services, including case management and other services intended to keep households stably housed and administrative costs. So we have an opportunity to make this application. It's estimated for us that this will probably be somewhere between $4 and $5 million. There are no general fund match requirements in this, but we will need to complete our process in their system by 9 o'clock tonight. Otherwise, we will not be eligible for these funds.
So this needs to take action on it today. Is that right, Gary?
So I'd ask you to vote on it today. Yes, yes.
Commissioners, any comments on this?
I don't see any hands raised.
Well, I would entertain a motion that allows Director Swift to make application for rental assistance program to Clackamas County.
Chair Smith, I move that we submit that rental assistant program grant application.
Second.
This motion has been moved by Commissioner Scholl and seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any comment? Hearing none. Christine, would you call the poll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Rich, for bringing that forward. That's
you.
very
Quickly, I
important.
need to ask our county council, so does this need to be ratified at a business meeting, or can the action today make it be the approval?
It can be the approval today, but you can certainly ratify it if you'd like to, but you can vote and approve it today as well.
Because the traditional course of business will be at a formal business meeting, so I'm going to suggest we put it on your consent agenda for Thursday, just to formally ratify it, although you've made the action today.
That's fine.
That is okay, so.
Thank you very much, Gary.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rich. All right, moving on, Landlord Rent Assistance Program. Rich, go ahead.
Okay, so on this, I'd like to call Jill Smith in via Zoom to help us with this presentation. Do you see her, Christina?
Yep, let me grab her. Okay, she's in.
Okay, so the Landlord Rental Assistance Program. So we've been doing some work with Oregon Housing and Community Services regarding some potential for distribution of funds to local landlords to be helped with the rents that they're owed. And so what I'd like to do is ask Jill to walk us through the details on this and the next steps.
Thank you, Rich, and good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to briefly discuss this with you. I do want to give you a heads up that we're expecting a contract from OHCS, Oregon Housing and Community Services. We're hoping by the end of this month, and that will need to come before you. And my hope is that upon your understanding of this program, it could be placed on consent for your approval. During a special session on December 21st, the Oregon legislature enacted an eviction moratorium, as you know, through June 30th, 2021. And they established a new program called the Landlord Compensation Fund, which is found in House Bill 4401. They did this based upon several other states that have found that compensating landlords directly rather than tenants one by one was much more efficient, effective way for relieving rent arrears caused by COVID. So the Housing Authorities of Oregon, which is an organization which I'm the president of this year, has actively been engaged with OHCS because we have relationships with the landlords in Clackamas County. Every month we send out thousands of checks. We did not want to see OHCS set up an alternative system and create something that already exists. So all of the housing authorities across the state are partnering with OHCS in this new program. There's $150 million set aside for this landlord compensation fund. Landlords will apply online with OHCS seeking approval. They'll share tenant information. They'll share outstanding rents owed. OHCS will approve them, send us the information. We will then make the payments to our local landlords and notify the tenants that their rent has been forgiven. And in order to receive those payments, the landlords do have to be willing to accept 80% of amount owed and forgive the rest. There's a draft funding distribution formula. Again, it's just draft, but I wanted to give you some idea of how the funding is anticipated to be distributed across the state. And if you look, Clackamas is anticipated to receive 7.75%, which is about 11.5 million. So I just wanted to make you aware of this opportunity we have as a housing authority in hopes that we have many more to partner with OHCS in this type of local work. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Jill Smith?
Chair Smith, I have a question on what date will that OHCS website be opened? And how, and are we sure that all landlords are getting notified of this opportunity?
I don't have an exact date that the OHCS website will be open. I wish that I did. We have been told that the goal is for the program to be ready to operate by the end of the first week of February. So that is what we're gearing up for and hoping for. It is led by OHCS. They are also responsible for marketing. I can assure you that the housing authorities are actively requesting the ability to help market this program to our local landlords. So our voice is at that table and we're working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't see any hands raised.
Gary, is this just an informational?
This would be a consent agenda item, correct? Can I wait till, does it need to be this week or next week?
Well, I could wait, because actually, we have not finished our conversations with OHCS in terms of what that would look like. The reason we have it here in, for your consideration today is essentially a heads up, because these types of funding opportunities are coming at us fast and furious. And I think early and often is a better strategy than us coming to you quite late with this. But so we do not know exactly when the other shoe will drop on this, but it will be coming.
Well, then I recommend we probably do not have to take action on this, but wait
Not
for.
at this point, no.
Thank you, Rich.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rich. Moving on to the Juvenile Department, we have two requests. Christina McMahon, the director, is here, and she's bringing a guest, Ed Jones, correct, from her finance manager. So the first is Emergency Shelter Care Services for the Boys and Girls Aid Society of Oregon. Go ahead, Christina.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and Chair Shull and all of the county commissioners. My name is Christina McMahon. I'm the Juvenile Department Director, as Gary said. And the first item that's listed is identical to the second item that has my name attached to it. They're both contracts that we are hoping to have on the consent agenda for the January 21st business meeting, related to our ability to offer emergency shelter bed placements for young people that are either involved with our department or brought to us by law enforcement. We use this as a way to divert young people who can't safely remain in their homes from going to detention, but because of their individual circumstances, they need some sort of out-of-home placement on a temporary basis. These beds are used typically for 1 to 14 days. This is a 5-year contract for each of the organizations, Maple Star and the Boys and Girls Aid Society.
Commissioners, are there any questions or discussion?
I do not see any hands raised.
I would entertain a motion.
No motion needed, Chair. These would go on the consent agenda if you all agreed.
Yes, of course.
So, good. So for January 21st, we'll put both on the agenda. Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Christina. All right. Next, Finance Department, FEMA grant for wildfire declaration. Christo Wolf, Deputy Director of Finance, will present.
Sorry, the microphone was not live. Apologize about that.
It's working.
Folks, fix it now. We are bringing forth before you today an agreement for your approval on consent agenda. This is the FEMA reimbursement for the 2020 wildfires for the county. The agreement right now is through Oregon's Department of Emergency Management and their military department. So you might notice the agreement does not have a cost associated with it. That is because FEMA's team is still doing their due diligence to vet the projects to ensure all costs are eligible. The county, currently our finance records estimate the agreement to be about $2.4 million. We're looking for your approval for consent agenda.
Commissioners, is there any discussion or questions?
I'm not seeing any hands.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the grant application.
Sorry, Chair, no motion needed. This is just to put on the consent agenda.
Okay, sorry about that,
It's
Gary.
okay. Krista, can this wait till January 21st, or would you need it this week?
The 21st will work.
All right, January 21st it is.
Thank you,
All right.
Krista.
Final department, but with the most, Transportation and Development. Dan Johnson, the Director of Transportation and Development. Dan, as quick as you can, again, knowing the board will answer the questions they need. First, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of rights-of-way, easements, and fee property for the Fuller-Causey Crosswalk Improvement Project and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions. That's a mouthful. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much. Again, Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation Development. County Road Fund and a Safe Routes to Schools grant from the Oregon Department of Transportation will be used to create an enhanced crosswalk to increase visibility and pedestrian safety at the south leg of the intersection of Southeast Fuller Road and Causey Avenue and Harmony Drive. The project is expected to impact two properties abutting the project alignment. The board has authority to exercise the power of eminent domain under ORS Chapter 35 to acquire right-of-way, easements, and fee property by purchase or condemnation proceedings. In accordance with the procedures set forth in that statute, a resolution of necessity is required before offers are made for needed right-of-way and easements. I want to make something just crystal clear. This is simply the resolution. We take condemnation very seriously. There is no condemnation act that is taking place. This is a first step that allows our right-of-way folks to go out and negotiate with people. If at any point in time there was a discussion around condemnation, we would come to you in executive session, update you on that, and get the board's direction on that. I just want to make sure we're crystal clear on that.
And this is common action taken on the transportation.
We have to do this for almost every capital project that we work on, no matter what the size may be.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions or discussion from commissioners?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, next.
Dan, January 21st or January 14th?
21st is fine.
Excellent. Next, grant approval for Webster Road Sidewalk Project.
The Safe Routes to Schools item is accepting a grant award and executing a grant agreement. The BCC did authorize the approval to apply for this grant back in August of 2020. Short summary, acceptance of the Safe Routes to School construction grant award and execution of a grant agreement with ODOT to construct sidewalks and bike lanes on Southeast Webster Road to Bilquist Elementary School. The board signed a letter of support and authorized the Department of Transportation and Development to apply for this Safe Routes to School grant on August 20th, 2020. Total project cost is approximately $2.6 million. ODOT grant award is approximately $1.9 million. There's a 20% match required of $659,000, which will be provided by our SDC funds that we have. There is no general fund associated with this project.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments by commissioners?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, Dan, what date?
21st is fine.
Okay, great, go ahead. A contract with Baker Rock Crushing Company to provide aggregate rock.
Actually, we're going to do a little consolidation real quick. There are actually two contracts regarding aggregate rock for Clackamas County. There are three. There's one with Baker Rock Crushing Company. There's one with Jim Turn and Sons Incorporated, DBA Mount Hood Rock Products, and last but not least, there is one, that's for asphalted concrete, my apologies. There are only two. The Department of Transportation and Development has a continual need for aggregate rock. Aggregate rock is used on a variety of projects, including shouldering, dig-outs, ditching, catch basins, guardrails, and pothole patching. These materials are essential to constructing, preserving, and rehabilitating roads and bridges. One of the biggest expenses on a project is equipment and labor. By having resources such as vendors throughout the county can cut back on trucking costs by using vendors that are closest to our job sites. That's why you see a number of contracts that are here for you today. This has gone through, let's see here, the project was advertised in accordance with ORS 279B and the LCRB rules on October 14th, 2020. Bids were publicly opened on October 28th. The county received these two bids from Baker Rock Crushing and Turin and Sons. Both vendors were chosen and were awarded the contract through October 31st, 2023.
Sounds good, Gary.
All right. Any questions, Christina?
Oh, yes, any questions for commissioners? I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself,
There's a
commissioners.
lot, I know.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, yes, Andrew Naylor wants to come up and say something.
Yes, commissioners, I think there are actually 4 contracts. They're all in this category, if I remember correctly.
There are 2 more for asphalted concrete. That was for rock. There are 3 more for asphalted concrete. There were 2 for rock crushing.
Got it. Okay, I just want to make sure they were all included because I know it's a big package of these. So sounds like it's covered.
Okay, Dan, what dates, Dan?
21st is fine.
Okay, very good. Next, so 3 contracts related to asphalt.
My apologies. Yes, there were 4 as it relates to asphalted concrete.
Okay.
So this is in regards to 4 contracts, one of which is with Baker Rock again, the second of which is with Jim Turn and Sons, the third is with Lakeside Industries, and the fourth is with South Canby Asphalt. And this is regarding asphaltic concrete. The Department of Transportation and Development has a continuous need for asphaltic concrete for the use of surface repairs. It is what's commonly known as asphalt and comes in a variety of densities. It is used in a variety of projects when repairing the road surface. Year-round, it is used for pothole patching and can be in a hot or cold treatment depending on the weather. By having resources such as asphaltic contract vendors throughout the county, they can cut back on trucking costs by using vendors that are closest to the job sites. By having these contracts in place for the larger projects, the county is able to plan ahead where to get asphaltic concrete needed at the best price, at the shortest distance for the truck to travel back and forth between the rock pit and job site. The project was advertised in accordance with ORS 279B and LCRB rules on October 13th, 2020. Bids were publicly opened on October 27th, 2020. And the county received the 4 proposals we mentioned today from the individuals that I had read. All 4 vendors were chosen and were awarded the contract through October 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, date, Dan?
21st is fine.
Okay, and finally, amendment number 1 to contract 1831 with Murray Smith Incorporated for the Jennings Avenue, Oregon 99E to Oatfield Road project.
Yes, thank you so much. The design of the project is 60% complete, and additional work is needed to finalize the design and to perform the right-of-way phase of the project. The amendment, this is an amendment to a current contract. The amendment includes items related to additional environmental work related to cultural resources and wetland studies needed to gain FHWA environmental clearance for the project. Additionally, there are design efforts related to geotechnical pavement exploration, and illumination analysis, traffic speed and a pedestrian crossing signal, and additional right-of-way efforts due to an increase in right-of-way files related to more right-of-way maps and descriptions, right-of entries and appraisals and acquisition files. Additionally, right-of-way files are needed because ADA ramps needed on the south side of the project at various intersections, and the addition of the traffic speed and pedestrian crossing signal. The amendment will be paid through a combination of federal surface transportation program and county road fund. There's no general fund associated with this.
Wonderful, Dan. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I do not see any hands raised.
Date, Dan?
21st is fine.
All right. Excellent. That was the last one. Wow. Congratulations to staff. Thank you, commissioners. We did that in 29 minutes. That's pretty good.
That's very nice. I want to thank all of the presenters who came forward today. I think this is important in keeping with transparency to let the public know what their local government is doing. And I thank you all for participating in that.
The last item is back to commissioner communications, but I recommend we do that at the end of the day today and give you a short break before your 12 o'clock meeting.
Yes, and I have the awards luncheon at 12 o'clock. When are commissioners due back?
Actually, they're all invited to that awards lunch at 12, and then 1:30 p.m. will be the start of policy sessions.
Well, commissioners, if I don't see you at the awards luncheon, I will see you at 1:30. I look forward